Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Envision. I'm Deanne Conrad here with Dr. Brian Maher, our Superintendent of Sioux Falls Public Schools. Envision is a program that helps us dig deeper into what is happening in the Sioux Falls School District, and one of the most notable things that has happened in the last month or so has been the teacher salary increase that was brought up through the legislature. Lots of great debate that happened in that time. You put in a significant amount of time in the Blue Ribbon Task Force prior to the legislative session. That's got to be one of the highlights from this year.
Very definitely. I think probably, I don't think it's overly dramatic to say that's a landmark legislation for the state of South Dakota. And you know, I started on the Blue Ribbon Task Force on July 7th, and the conversation started well beyond that. So this didn't just happen during the legislative session. There was a lot of work and a concerted effort put in by the governor and the legislature and really the citizens of South Dakota to get us to the spot that we're at today.
Right, and that is one of the major points of legislation. It's going to take us a little while to work through the details of that. I know some in the community have said, well, what does this exactly mean? What's the dollar figure that this is going to bring to our teachers? And it's not quite that easy. There's a lot of math that needs to be done and a lot of understanding that still needs to occur.
Yeah, there are several pieces that have to fall in place before we know exactly what it means. In general, I know what it means. It's going to mean a good and sizable increase for our teaching staff, and that's a good thing. There are some variables that will determine what exactly that means. For example, we have to sift through what the definition of a teacher is in terms of the legislation. Second, we have a negotiated agreement that we're in the middle of right now that will certainly have an impact on the distribution of those funds. Third, we just need to figure out the mechanics of the bill itself. The Department of Education is doing a nice job. Just last week, Todd Veek and I, our business manager, were at a session put on by the Department of Education so that we could help figure out the mechanics of the distribution of the funds. The governor's chief of staff was out here in our office last week, so I think we're getting closer and closer all the time. And in the meantime, our teachers and all of our staff have been very patient in waiting for us to figure out what the correct amount is. One of the reasons it's taking a while is money can be a real emotional issue, and I don't want to give anybody bad information in terms of how much money they're going to get. So,
and you've communicated that to staff as well.
Yeah, we've got real good feedback from the staff on their patience, but I know if I'm in their shoes, I'm still saying, hurry up, come on already, the law has passed.
Sure.
What's it mean for us? So we want to do that as quickly as is possible for our staff.
And obviously that weighs heavily into the budget discussions that are currently going on, and a tentative adoption of that will happen in April sometime. So lots of things have to fall into place.
Yeah, it's a critical time for putting the budget together. It's a critical time for figuring out the salary increases not only for our teaching staff, but for all of our staff. You know, the budget process impacts everybody. So we've got to let about 3,300 people know what does this mean for them personally.
Right, absolutely. Well, lots of work to do on that yet.
Quite a bit to do.
And lots of communication we'll be doing in the future as well as to what this means for each individual person. So thanks for joining us today on Envision.